table that? Yeah, we can table that.
I don't know if that's a question for the chief or anything.
But this came up, I think it was last year, and then we were talking about whether or not he was getting a badge and a gun. If you guys would like, I can contact Pam, who does the police IDs, and then have something that says recycling coordinator Greenwich Township. If that's what you would like, I can just have her make something up and send it to you guys for approval if you want.
There is a, we have to discuss that. We have to discuss the fact that the recycling coordinator needs to have some sort of certification, which is 16 or some number of weeks of education. And if we're going to look at another agreement somewhere, so let's just table that for now.
Okay, that's fine.
So hold off on the gun.
Yeah.
The gun.
Yeah, hold on.
No,
Give the badge.
and no bullets.
Give the wooden one. Take the cannoli, leave the gun.
The next issue was to speak about the certification that's needed for a recycling coordinator. There's a new state mandate that's coming up that someone has to have some type of certification. From my understanding, I think you have to go to Rutgers for maybe, I think it's a year, if I'm not mistaken. Something, right, Mike, to that effect?
Please don't quote me on this because I haven't researched it, but I've heard other people talk about it. I think it's a minimum of 8 classes, and I think it comes with a hefty price tag. That's
Correct.
Yeah, isn't it $1,600? What is it?
I think I looked it up, I think it might be over $2,000.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so, yeah, I don't know when it actually goes into effect that you need this to occur, if you're grandfathered in the meantime or what, but, yeah, it's a lot. I don't know why this happened, but it's causing a lot of problems.
Does the mandate stipulate any population amount that
I don't
requires
know,
something this
Tom, I
large?
wish I could,
Not yet.
I know what I hear in
There
other
was
meetings.
an effort by Senator Dougherty to not have small towns like ours be on this group. Do you know anything about that?
That's the last I heard. He was looking into that to try to put that into effect for small towns like us, so we don't get steamrolled with costs.
So you don't know if it's right or not?
It's not done yet.
Okay.
And the other thing, the last thing I heard with that, and Kim would know this also, was that they're talking about having one person in the county with the certification that would cover all the townships, and that would help towns like us that are small to continue recycling the way we do.
Warren County does have the Victor Camperine. I can't imagine that he'd be running around doing.
The tonnage report is due April 30th.
April 30th?
It's an electronic report that is submitted to the state. It is usually signed off by the recycling coordinator.
That's the one, as I recall, last year, we missed an opportunity.
To collect.
To collect all the money because we didn't
We
have
don't
help
wanna
from the
do that this
businesses,
year.
which I had sent an email out to the attorney and you guys to follow through to let's get this in and get it in effect so that when this deadline does come, we can then go after any violators that submit their tonnage report to me.
Do you think that business cards are better than a badge?
Well, I think anybody can put a business card, you know?
Okay.
But what I'm saying here too is for the tonnage report, I have the paperwork that I got from the county. There are some certified coordinators in the county that did take the class. And the county is also certified, Victor is. So at this point, they're willing to do so for like a shared service, something where, I mean, in this case, I would prepare the tonnage report and have all the data, but then they would certify and sign off that that's what I'm submitting. But they're just signing off and certifying as a certified person to send in the report. However, any of the audit trail and any of that would come back to the township. So we're looking for shared service for a certified person.
I want to just make sure, because you're prompting my memory now from last year when I was listening to this.
Right.
There were either reports that were not done, or there were people who did not comply.
People who did not comply.
And we didn't have the leverage to get them to comply, as I recall.
Exactly. That's
So
why
we need an ordinance.
That ordinance, I sent an email out, what was it, about maybe 2 weeks ago or so, to the committee and to Brent to draft an ordinance for non-compliance with the recycling law.
Did you see that?
Not submitting in
Did I see
Yeah.
that? I think probably a week ago I saw
Okay,
it, but I would need
okay.
to be authorized to draft such an
Yes.
ordinance.
Yeah, I think we need to do that,
Okay.
so,
So let's do that.
yeah.
Well, that was gonna be the last thing with this tonnage report, because according to Kevin, and what you just spoke about now, people, the businesses are not filing the tonnage reports, and we're losing money with all of this. And so,
Right.
one of the ideas that Kevin had was that he'd like to, for us to maybe implement some type of, give them a notice. If they don't comply within the timeframe of that notice, then we would assert some type of fine or something like that. So that was one of the ideas he came across with.
Well, we could probably put that in the ordinance.
Right. But is it,
Well, and we have to also look at the fact that it's not Kim's responsibility to file the tonnage report. It is the recycling coordinator's responsibility, and Kim has filed the tonnage report the last time when we got, when we received an exorbitant amount of money, $40-some-odd thousand. It was tedious. I know Jim was still on at the time, and it was a lot of work, and the recycling coordinator has to do that.
yeah, we need that, I mean, we can't, we should not be in a position to lose out again, like we did last year.
Okay, so I'll prepare an ordinance for consideration by the committee at the next meeting.
Yeah. That's fine. We didn't make a motion to officially.
And it's not even so much even going out to the businesses. I have a list of the businesses that I send it out to. So if they do not submit in their required report by the deadline, I will have the list, they're in non-compliance per the ordinance, and then you can have, the summons issued.
Yeah. And I don't know how far we can go with it, but my thought process is, whatever we would get from the tonnage report, that should mirror the fines. So at the end of the day, whether they give us the information or not, we get right to the penny what we would have gotten had we gotten the information.
That's kind of,
Right.
Well, or as close there as we can.
Mhm.
I don't wanna see a $50 or $100 fine.
no.
I mean, otherwise it's, you know.
Yeah, when I have somebody
Don't
that,
waste the time.
could submit,
Hey Brett, is there anything against posting a list of the non-compliant companies in town? You know, just for me personally, I mean, I this is Greenwich Township, and everybody says, let's keep it green and all that other stuff. If we got major corporations moving into town violating that ordinance, maybe, the taxpayers should be able to say, hey, you know what,
Before
do we wanna patronize these companies?
Before we go down that road, some of these companies are big businesses in our town, and what happens is the person who's in charge of this changes, and they don't quite understand or respect the idea that people who are actually in charge of Lowe's, their home office, or whatever, whomever it is, they need to understand that we also mean business, and they do tonnage reports for their own
Alright.
home office.
They have to.
They should be just submitting us a copy of that. I mean, this is not rocket science, it's just more or less getting them to do it.
manager of the store.
And I think, well, if we get a new ordinance in place, we can maybe set up a protocol where
Yeah.
they get a reminder, a tickler, at a certain point in the year with a copy of, the highlights of the ordinance, and that will kind of hopefully prompt them to, do
But
what
I
they
kinda
need to
like
do.
that idea, because like we do with tax liens, and or sewer, and
We're
they
we're going into the end of January. I have February and March. I have 2 months. We need 2 months for a reading of an ordinance. They don't have this into me by, the end of March, beginning of April, for me to gather and put all the data into the system and get the spreadsheet ready. When I have to hit the button to send it to the state, that's it. There's their deadline. So they can't come trickling in, the deadline is what it is for the
It's
state.
true, it's true.
So there's no second out. The letter that is sent out, and it's from the county, states the law, states the requirement that, I have the boilerplate letter that states to them that they are responsible to do this. It is the law. So if they choose not to comply with the township, then they're in violation of the law, and then our ordinance will then mirror the law, and fines will be assessed.
Do we need to make a motion? Because I mean,
If you'd like to make a motion to authorize me to
Yeah,
put that together, that's fine.
If that's what we need to do, so is there a motion to
I'll make
authorize?
the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel? Yes. Miliani?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes.
All right.
Let me ask the question with this. Would it help if I were to go to each of these establishments and talk to them? And that
Like your
doesn't,
recycling coordinator?
yeah,
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
it's great to have somebody.
Because
else.
you have your
Yeah,
badge,
I do.
right?
yes, I do.
Okay, well, there you go.
That's a good reason to use it.
But I don't have a gun.
You don't need a gun.
Yeah,
Oh, is that
All
a?
right.
yeah, that'd be great,
I'll get
Dan.
with Kevin and.
Thank
and
you.
do that before I'm
Thank you.
All right, another issue is our utilities. We have exorbitant, utility bills for our street lighting. What I'd like to do is sit down, with Kim, go over these bills, see what these bills are, and then talk to whoever the representative is at, JCP&L, is that who we have? First Energy, and sit with them and see if we could talk to them about some type of solar panels on the street lamps outside. If that's something that's feasible, if it's a cost savings to the town, then I think it's something we should explore.
The only thing I would add is, down at the League of Municipalities, in November, you know, Tom and I met with some vendors down, there is so much grant money out there.
Mhm.
I would just say that we should definitely, it's a project I think that we definitely should be doing, but I think that we should not be spending any taxpayer money on this because there are plenty of grants out there, so we can coordinate that with grant money, then it, you know, it really, I think it's a no-brainer.
Then I picked up some of those pamphlets from two of the vendors that offer the solar lighting for the streets that were talking about the grants. They might have leads on just to
Okay.
cut through the red tape and go get an app.
And I even have some, I have some contact information from the league where there's an outfit, they're in South Jersey somewhere, where they'll actually assist and, you know, assist with preparation of the grant if, you know, if need be, so.
I just had a couple of things here. I just need to be clear on something as far as our auditors from that we've had in the past, Mr. Swisher's auditors. I understand that we're not gonna be using them anymore. We have new auditors coming in.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Voted on that in January.
All right, now, Mr. Swisher and his group, aren't they contracted to do the auditing for us this year, 2011?
Already spoken to Mr. Swisher.
Okay, so are we then obligated to pay?
No.
Don't they have a contract?
No.
So what, we don't have to pay anything to them?
Correct.
Okay, great, that's good. All right, the other thing I need to ask about is, are we starting to set new office policies? You know, without having discussion with the rest of the committee. I understand that one of our employees was told that she couldn't receive personal phone calls, or a personal phone call. My understanding is that if we're gonna implement something like that, we need to implement that office-wide, not just to one employee. And also, we need to sit down as a committee. Again, my understanding is that we should sit as a committee if that's something that we want to put into place and discuss that as a whole.
What are you referring to?
I'm talking to you.
Okay, if you want to talk about a particular employee or issues, it's not appropriate to discuss that now. It's the wrong time to bring it up.
Well,
You should know that.
No, I checked
We
that.
could discuss it, I'm not discussing it now.
Okay, well, I asked the question first before I brought it up.
And I'm gonna comply with the law, and it's not appropriate to discuss it in open session, and you should know that by now.
No, I'm not talking about, work habits or anything like that of an individual.
You brought up a specific instance, it was inappropriate, we will discuss it in executive session.
Okay.
How long have you been, you should know this by now.
Well,
Peter.
listen, before you correct me, I checked with Brent to make sure that I could bring this up and talk about this. I was told that I could. So if you have an issue with that, then
I do. Anything else?
What? I thought we were talking more about policy than an individual.
He was referring to a specific,
I didn't name anyone.
you were referring to something specific.
So
Yeah.
did we change an office policy and,
No,
no?
no,
So we can talk about this in executive session
Sure.
and then come out
Sure.
and discuss it in open?
sure.
All right. And finally, my point to all these questions is that I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but there are some issues that have come forward, and I was not included in these conversations. If we're gonna work as a committee, as a whole committee, as 5 people on this township committee, then everyone needs to be included in conversations that's gonna affect the township. And, you know, and that's my point here. You wanna come in and you wanna say that we're gonna work as a whole, as a group, let's have unity, peace, love, brother, all that stuff, then let's do it as a committee. All 5 of us should be involved in all conversations that pertain to this township.
Well, Dan, to be clear, everything that we have done has been done as a committee. And the specific instance that you're referring to that we will discuss in executive session, based upon your vote on January 1st, was appropriate for me to address, and we'll address that in executive session and remind you of exactly what you voted on and why your comment right now is out of order.
I don't believe it's out of order.
It is.
And first of all, you didn't discuss everything with us. You didn't discuss the hiring of the new auditors. You didn't discuss the hiring of Mr. Carney. You didn't discuss a few things with us. So don't tell me that you discussed everything with us, because you haven't. And I wouldn't bring it up unless that was so.
Anything else?
My thought is then what did you vote for on January 1?
I told you I made a mistake with that. That's not
The whole thing?
That's about the
no.
4th mistake that I've heard you make.
No. Are we talking about the ordinance for
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
for the
talking
part-time?
about the appointments of the people who were appointed on
Because
January 1.
they're here.
Well,
And so I voted for them. Yes, I did vote for them
okay,
because they're
all right,
here. It
so we
doesn't
should
make,
have had the discussion then,
it
Dan.
doesn't make any sense to
Then why
not
didn't we
vote for them
have,
at that
well,
point.
why didn't we have the discussion then?
Why?
Okay.
You wanna know why? I'll tell you why. Because these guys were just coming in that day, and I didn't wanna make a whole big to-do with it on their first day in. So I saved it, Lane.
Okay.
So I waited till
Well, every
now
other
to talk
time,
about it.
every other
So
time.
You
I
had
think-
no problem voting no for me for mayor, so you could have voted no on the appointment of a professional.
Exactly.
I know
Anything
Brett,
else?
I know Brett, and Brett's a good guy. All right?
Anything else?
No, but I'll tell you something else though. I don't like being cut off when I'm talking.
I mean, I asked you, is there anything
When
else?
I'm done talking, then you can ask me if there's anything else, and that goes for you too, Elaine. You know, I think the part that when any one of us is talking up here, the one thing that's been happening this whole past year is that when you don't like when you're hearing something that's going on, you try to cut them off. And that's not right. I don't do that to any of you guys. I don't expect you to do that to me. Show a decent decorum for all of us on this committee here, and let us finish saying what we have to say, and then you can say your piece. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. I don't have a problem with being wrong. Nobody's perfect. But what I will say to you is that maintain a certain decorum and let each of us speak until we're done. That's it. That's all I got.
Just a comment. Your comments are completely out of line because you just spoke on 4 items that were not on the agenda, and you were not interrupted, and you were allowed to say it. So your attempt to paint a picture that you're not allowed to speak your piece is belied by what you've actually done, which was speak your piece, and it's captured right there on the video. So, I mean, your point is lost on me.
I'm sure it is.
Any Committeewoman Siegel?
Yes, yes, so a couple things. First of all, let me thank you for adding my agenda item. There was a revised agenda here. I just want to speak to that actually first. I had submitted 2 agenda items. One, the ordinance, which is already on for second reading, which obviously didn't need to be under my section here. But I had also submitted an agenda item on the discussion of the duties of the treasurer that was part of the shared service contract. Submitted that agenda item as requested by our township clerk, and when I came in to pick up my agenda booklet, it was not there. To say the least, I was somewhat annoyed, and so I appreciate that it's now here. But the point that I'd like to make is, I believe that we're all elected officials here, have equal say, and I just want to put it out there that I think when an agenda item is presented, especially at a regular scheduled meeting, that they should be included on the agenda. They shouldn't be taken off by somebody. I don't know who took my agenda item off. I don't know. I don't know if it was you, Joe, or Elaine, or Tom, or Dan, Kim. I have no idea. But I would like to say that if we submit agenda items, I believe, back to the respect for the rest of the committee members, that the agenda items should be on there.
Tammy, your agenda item is on there. It was an oversight by Kim. We had a discussion and she made a correction.
She told me that I needed to speak with you about getting it back on.
I never took it off. That's not correct.
Okay, well, thank you for getting it back on there for me. So, couple things. Discussion on duties of treasurer. So as you know, when we had the special meeting to hire the CFO, and I voted yes for the CFO because, like you said, we didn't have one for a couple months, and I felt it was very important that we had a CFO. The job was advertised as a CFO. When the shared service contract, and again, it was quoted in the newspaper, had I read my agenda packet, I would have known and been able to approach these questions prior about the job being combined CFO treasurer. If I recall correctly, that agenda packet was not ready until the night of the meeting. So, and even so, having that in there when the shared service contract is already up for vote, I'm not sure at that point what kind of discussion that we can have other than to vote against it or oppose it or have that. But anyways, a couple things. When we did talk about it at the special meeting on the 10th, I asked some questions about what the duties of the treasurer were, and no one really could answer that for me. I was told that it was going to be decided later. I asked about the savings, and that too was, it was answered that would be, we weren't sure what the savings was going to be. I did a little homework, and if I look at what we were paying our last CFO, Grace was making a base salary of $37,500. If you take into consideration the 11% that we pay towards her pension, it was $4,100, so total $41,600. Our shared service contract that we just hired Lorraine from Alpha, the base salary is $35,000. If you take into consideration that we negotiated that we pay 40% of her health care costs, which as we know that goes up every year, that's about $8,400, and then the 40% towards her pension is $3,850. So it comes up to about $47,500.
Let me be clear. Your numbers are wrong. Absolutely wrong. The medical is $5,300.
Can I finish? I'm not finished.
Your numbers
Wayne,
are
I'm not
wrong.
finished.
Okay.
Thank you. We're paying Sharon $25,000 to do 3 pieces: accounts payable, treasurer, and payroll. If I add up how long it takes her to do those 3 functions, it's about a day and a half. Our last CFO came in a day and a half each week. We hired Lorraine for 2 days per week. To me, it looks like we're asking Lorraine to do 3 days of work in 2 days. Is that true?
No.
So how is that work getting done?
Lorraine has no problem.
Okay, so Lorraine will be able to do that full amount of work that for accounts payable, treasurer, payroll. We are not intending to hire anyone else to take on that work. Lorraine will do all that work, 3 days of work in 2 days. Is that what we're planning to do?
Anything else?
I'm asking a question. I mean, this is, we're a committee here.
You're going through something. We've hired a CFO treasurer. I'll answer it this way. In years past, Greenwich Township has always had a CFO treasurer in one position. That mirrors the statute, and it's 48:9-140.1. And most municipalities operate under the auspices of this statute, which contemplates the CFO also serving as treasurer. It is uncommon, actually very uncommon, to unbundle a treasurer CFO function. In fact, when I spoke with Lorraine in anticipation of this meeting, I said, can you describe for me treasurer duties? And she said no, because my treasurer duties and CFO duties are all encompassed in one. And she gave me a list of what her duties are, and they're both part of treasurer and CFO. So we had a situation where Greenwich Township always had a CFO treasurer. For whatever reason, under your leadership, you unbundled it, and you took a salary that was traditionally designated for a CFO treasurer, and you created a separate position and a separate obligation of the taxpayer to pay someone else to do what has traditionally been part of one compensation. We've brought and streamlined it back in accordance with what is really traditionally done in most municipalities and as contemplated in the statute that I read to you. So
I
that's
guess,
the best way I can answer it.
okay, so I guess the last point that I would like to make on this is then when you think about it, treasurer and CFO combined, we've really reduced our financial controls, because that means you have the same person making deposits as reconciling the accounts.
No, you can have internal controls by having different signatures on it. There's other ways of doing it. That doesn't mean that you can't have internal controls with a smaller staff. As a reality, Tanya, there are many small municipalities, and you can't simply hire in an inefficient way as the means of internal controls. There's other ways of implementing internal controls, and Lorraine has been charged with developing those internal controls reduced to writing, and we'll be
So
discussing.
I think that's great. So if the internal controls are okay, and we're getting 3 days of work in 2 days, and we're not gonna hire somebody else to pick up that work, I think that's a good saving. So I think that's great. Okay. I have a couple other things as well. Let's see.
That are not on the agenda.
No, but I can add them on because this
It's a question.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the one thing that I would like to respond to, after our last meeting, it was reported in the Express Times that we have a budget gap of $500,000. It was in the Express Times this past Monday, January 16th, that we're in, I think I'm quoting you, that Greenwich is in the hole 500,000. So we have big problems. So I put out there to the residents that we have big problems. What I'd like to say is that really isn't true. The budget gap we have is $200,000. $100,000 is due to the increased cost of employee health care, pensions, and contractual agreements that we're obligated to. And the other $100,000 is due to ongoing litigation of a terminated police officer. And I guess what I would just say to you, Joe, is as a litigation attorney, as you are, I would think that you are, who would better know this than you, that it's quite difficult to budget litigation costs. So, so that's the $200,000 gap. Now, what you may have been referring to when you said $500,000 was possibly the $300,000 that was borrowed from the sewer surplus account. What I'd like to say about that is $200,000 of that was borrowed by Elaine when she was mayor in 2008, 2009 because of over expenditures in 2008 of $233,000, which was deferred into 2009. So almost that total $300,000 was due to Elaine not wanting to increase taxes in 2009. She made statements several times that she did not want to increase taxes by more than 1 penny. So that's why that money was borrowed from the sewer fund. So I want to make sure that the residents of this township do not think that we left the township in the hole of $500,000 last year. In fact, if you look year over year, our budget has decreased significantly, despite the fact that healthcare costs and pension costs have increased, as well as this litigation cost. So, so that's one thing that I would like to get straight on the record. And then the last thing that I would like to comment on just goes back to Dan's point. That, and I haven't seen from Tom this, so I'm not putting Tom into this, but I think you ran on foster cooperation and respect amongst the elected appointed officials, achieve true transparency in local government based upon honesty, integrity. If that's the way we're going to operate, I would like that to start today, because I am not feeling very respected when my agenda items get taken off. And decisions are made when this committee, when all 5 committee members are not part of it, when we are all elected officials, having equal power at this table. So I would like to make a request that we start working as a collaborative, aligned committee in making our decisions. So there aren't behind the scenes, behind door decisions being made by 1 or 2 people on this council.
First, I don't know why you keep referring to an agenda item that's on the agenda. So again, you feel the need to make a political speech. That's your prerogative. I'm gonna stick with the facts. The facts are that your requested agenda item appeared on the agenda, and it's for everybody to see in the audience tonight, so your comment really is not